Okay, welcome back. Let's go through handles. So now I've got this cup, it's trimmed, it's signed. I did a relief foot on the bottom. If your piece is really centered, you're more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, you just keep it flat. So I have in front of me all the tools that we need. I would suggest you have a banding wheel. They are located by the door. I would also suggest that you have some vinegar. There's vinegar containers up in front of the smartboard. You need to have, again, all these tools are in front of the smartboard, okay? You need to have a smudge stick. There's a couple different shapes. This one is my favorite. You need to have a handle maker, and they are hanging on the pegboard on the far left near the clay sink. You need to have something that you can cut with. This is called a fettling knife, and this is also in one of the red bins in front of the smartboard. Something to score with. There's textured ribs that are at the wheels that you can use, or you can use one of these needle tools. It looks like it's a needle tool with a bad hair day, so it's tons of little points, and it'll also work to scratch and attach. I would suggest you have a red rib, a damp sponge, and you may need a little rolling pin. Again, all of these tools are in front of the smartboard. Okay, so I have clay off the block, and the first thing I'm going to do is I need to roll it out. So I'm going to use the canvas table, and I'm just going to kind of press this down. And then I'm going to use my rolling pin to just flatten it out. Okay, so that's plenty of space for a handle. Before I do anything, I'm going to use my red rib. I'm going to just clean it on my damp sponge and compress the clay. This will help to make sure that it doesn't warp, and I'm going to do it on both sides. Once you've compressed your clay, and notice my hands are very clean, then you have to decide which handle is going to work for you. Now my cup is a little big, so I'm going to use this one. You could use this one if you have a smaller vessel. So I have a bucket of water next to me. I'm going to wet my tool, and I'm going to hold the clay, and I'm going to drag this tool all the way through it. Once I drag all the way through, I have this nice handle that's curved on the edge. That's all you need this clay for. And I'm going to be very careful. I don't want the table to be super duper wet, because then my handle will stick. I'm just using a little tiny bit of water on my fingers to soften this. And now I'm going to think about my shape. So this is obviously too big for my piece, but I'd rather have a piece that's too big and I can cut it down than something that's too small. So I'm going to let this sit for a second, and while it does, I'm going to show you some different ideas for handles. Okay, so when you make a handle, I would strongly encourage, if you look at this handle, you can see that I have it curved so that there's a lot of surface area connecting to the cup. So up here, you can see that the inside curves down, and it's a nice strong connection. The bottom curves up. Okay, so I'm going to show you this a little bit closer, and it's clean all the way around. Okay, so all of these different shapes are all possibilities. Let's see if I can get a good angle here. There we go. So you can have a handle that has like a little bend in it, so that it has like a different spot for both of your fingers or whatever fingers are going into it. This one is more tapered at the bottom. This one is more like a larger C. All of these shapes are totally fine, but if you see, they have a strong connection. Okay, so if you want to flare the bottom out, you can, but you have to really make sure that you connect it. This is my preference. I like when things are curved back in. I think it looks much nicer. The smudge stick is what's going to help you to clean up all of your seams. Okay, so let's go back to my handle. So I'm gonna move my cup, and I'm gonna look at my cup and see which side is my least favorite. And that's where I'm gonna put my handle. So I'm gonna say this is my least favorite side. So I'm gonna put my handle right here. Okay, so I have this fettling knife and I need to cut my handle while it's sitting on the table. I'm gonna show you how I'm cutting it. Again, my hands are clean. So I'm gonna hold this as if I was holding the handle. Okay, so when I cut it so that it was at an angle so I get that extra surface area, top and bottom. So whether you keep it down this way or you curve it back up, either way is totally fine as long as you have a good connection. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, don't unbend your handle. That's a great way to encourage cracks. So I'm gonna take a little bit of this vinegar. Vinegar works just the same as slip, except it's not adding thickness. So sometimes I think it works a little bit better. So I'm just gonna touch this with a little bit of moisture. You can't really see much, except all I did was give myself a little indicator where I wanna score. So then I'm gonna turn it and I'm gonna score where I added the vinegar, okay? So now I'm gonna score my handle. And notice my score lines are pretty deep and shaggy. So you wanna really make sure that you've got some good lines on there. I'm gonna add a little bit more vinegar to both sides. And I think this part is key. So I'm gonna use my right thumb and I'm gonna come behind the handle, and then my right fingertips are gonna come to the inside of the cup, and I'm going to press both edges together. Let's see if I can keep my hands out of the way so you can see. Okay, so I'm connecting by pressing on the bottom and the inside of the cup at the same time. Okay, once you've connected that, I'm gonna let the handle hold itself up for a second. I'm not gonna connect the bottom. I'm gonna clean my smudge stick and I'm gonna clean up the edges. You can kind of see on the edge how it looks kind of goopy. I use my sponge to clean things back off. Okay, the bottom of that seam looks pretty good. I also like that there's a thickness change, like right here. You can smooth this all the way into your vessel if you want. That's just personal choice. And now I'm gonna take a look. Oftentimes I find that people make handles that are too big. This is huge. Okay, so this is just gonna make your cup feel super duper heavy having all this negative space here. You're gonna be much better off, like I cut this way too long. You're gonna be much better off making a thinner handle and having it match the shape of your cup. Okay, so I think that's a much better shape, and then I can give it some space so that my fingers can get in there. Also notice, since you have this bevel here, it's a good spot for connecting. I'm gonna line it up to make sure the handle is straight. And now, before I connect anything, I'm gonna tip it. So I'm gonna hold it this way, and I'm gonna slide my handle out of the way a little bit. Add my scoring lines. And I can't get in with that tool on the bottom of the handle. So I'm going to use my needle tool. Add some slip, and I'm going to really make sure that it's straight, and then with a dry finger, I'm going to press. So now again, you can clean this up as much as you want. You might not want that big divot right there. And I'm going to take my tool and I'm going to go around my seams. Sometimes I like to go back and add like a little detail. So you can add like little designs on there. You can go back and just make sure that the shape is the way you want it to be. Double check that it's signed and make sure that your connection is strong on the top of all sides of your handle. And now it goes on the Never Been Fired shelf. Make sure it's signed.